Welcome back, everybody. It's Rodrigo with another episode of Asheville Real Estate News. And as you all know, quarter three just finished out. And so we're going to take an opportunity to look back and just kind of dive into some of the numbers and get a feel for what's happening here in the market in Western North Carolina. Probably going to be a larger emphasis on Buncombe County, but we'll touch on some of the surrounding areas as well and just get a feel for it. So before I introduce our guest today, I want to remind everybody that this episode and all of our episodes here at Asheville Real Estate News are brought to you all by American IRA LLC, your local IRA custodian. And also, Jim Hitt, the CEO, president of American IRA, is going to be speaking at our meetup at the end of this month, talking about, how to leverage your IRA, house hacking, and creative financing when it comes to real estate. If you've never heard Jim Hitt speak, you're going to be in for a treat. So really encourage you all to come out. As a reminder, first 10 people get free beer, and it's going to be at the Archetype location in downtown. So, without further ado, let me welcome on Cassie Dardenne to the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here, Rodrigo.
Yeah, absolutely. So, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, how you got into real estate, where you're working right now, and why you chose real estate.
Okay. Well, I have lived in the area for about 20 years now. I actually grew up in Alaska, lived in a little native Alaskan village for about 4 years. And then the big city of Anchorage after that for another
Anchorage?
4.
At this bigger point, than Asheville, I guess, is the question.
Oh, not bigger than Asheville,
no.
But compared to Bethel, with a population of 5,000 and 5 miles of paved road, that was the big city. And moved here senior year. My parents actually told me in December that we were moving to North Carolina in January of my senior year. So.
Oh, wow. They did not give you a lot of prep time, huh?
No, they did not.
How'd that conversation go?
Well, I was kind of an angry teenager at the time, but it's all for the best.
Fair enough.
And came here, finished up school, college here, and I actually moved to Ohio for the restaurant industry. I was in restaurant management for a long time. Loved that fast-paced life. Everything about it was really fun except for the hours. A lot of night times, evenings, weekends, and that's only conducive for a period of time, and then when you want to settle down, you have to make a change. So moved to Ohio for about a year and to help out a restaurant up there, and just decided that I missed Asheville and I was going to come back and buy a house. So I did that at 25. I moved back and bought my first house by myself and did not have the best experience with the agent at the time.
Oh, no. When was that, timing-wise, like what year?
2005. That was in the peak of the market.
Okay.
And it might have been partially due to that, just busy real estate agents, so much going on. But I'm happy I purchased at that time, but I did learn a lot. I wasn't represented in retrospect the way that I should have been, and guided through the process along the way that would have been more ideal. So
it was a little bit of a bumpy road, huh?
It was, but it all turned out well, and now, this many years in, I have a good amount of equity in that house, even with the market at the way it is now. So after being here, I did a little more in the restaurant and then transitioned into business technology, selling software, doing business-to-business, copiers, printers, that type of thing. And I love the consultative side of it. I love to meet with business owners, figure out how we can help them and assist them in that process, and did that for about 5-6 years, and then just felt like it was time to move on and got into actually the aspect of owners of businesses consulting them.
Okay.
So it was a large corporate company based out of Chicago, and I was there. I worked locally, but within a 3-mile radius. So someone would set up my appointments. I would have the initial consultation with a business owner and really just determine what challenges they had and how we could help them. And then we had a large team of people that we would pull in after, whether it was a tax advisor, HR advisor, things like that. And I was the Southeastern trainer in this area. And it was a great learning experience dealing with business owners, finding their challenges. A lot of times they're great at what they do, but they're not necessarily on the side of business knowledgeable on all aspects of it. But then the travel got to be a lot. after traveling within 3 hours. I had a young child. I just decided that it was time to come back and do something more local than that. And went to real estate school. And
how'd you decide on real estate school when you were at that juncture?
Well, I'd always had interest in it, but it never seemed like a good place in the market after, buying my house in 2005 and things going down for a while. It just didn't seem like a good time to get in. And at that time, there was nothing else that I had in mind besides real estate. So I thought I'd jump in full force and see what happened.
How long ago was that, give or take?
That was about 4 years ago, actually. And it's been a crazy 4 years. It seems like a lot longer.
So say you were talking about, I was in the restaurant industry for a while. I was a server for...
Wasn't everybody?
It feels like it. Yeah, I mean, I learned so much. It was a great experience, just like learning how to talk to different people and just manage expectations and manage conversations. I learned a lot and super thankful for the experience. But then I got out of it, I was like, I just want some like more normal hours in theory.
Yep.
And then I found out that at least my experience in real estate has not exactly resulted in normal hours. Like
Very
work
true.
it's a little bit chaotic, but it's a little bit more upside. So it's
And you
well
can
worth
do
it.
a lot of it from your phone
Yes.
and emails instead of being inside a building all the time. So that's
That
nice.
is true. Absolutely agree with that. So the flexibility is great. But let's talk about real estate. So Q4 is upon us, 2019. You've been here, a lot has changed. It feels like to me this year. I don't know if the numbers back that up, but hopefully you can tell us. It seems, in my opinion, things are slowing down a little bit. Feels like everything that I've touched has just taken a little bit longer than I expected. Things are, not moving as quickly. Days on market for my products have gone longer, and people are more tentative when they're buying. Is that backed up by anything in your opinion, or what's happening?
That is the case definitely in the city of Asheville. We have, their price is still appreciating, but it's appreciating at a little slower level now, right in the city of Asheville. It's actually kind of plateauing. We're still on an upward trajectory, but when you actually think about the surrounding area of city of Asheville, even Buncombe County in a whole, and some of the other counties, the tides are rising because it seems people are moving a little more out. There's a lot of regulations going on in the city of Asheville. There's only so much developable land in the area, and so we've really seen that there's an appreciation going on in the surrounding counties.
So as far as like things are moving a little quicker and prices are staying like strong in the county or like in other counties, or what's the ripple effect of people moving out of the city of Asheville?
Well, inventory is a little higher than it was.
Okay.
For example, I was pulling a comparative market of analysis for a Montford home.
Okay.
And when you do that, it was for a listing, looking to see what the market is showing for a value of that house before a listing. And earlier on in the year, I pulled one under $500,000. There were 4 homes that were comparable to that home, under $500,000. Did it again last week, and now there were 15 homes.
Wow.
So that's a good example of how much more inventory there is, and the more inventory, the more choices for buyers, the longer days on market right in town. Now,
are you seeing that same thing at a lot of different price points, or is it just kind of in the, 300 north or 500 plus price points?
well, the market in general is divided into 3 separate markets, and you have the affordable, which is up to $300,000.
Okay.
Now, this is where there is the lowest inventory. Like I told you, I was searching under $500,000 for that, and it still is statistically a seller's market in the under $300,000 category. Now, particular areas and neighborhoods are always going to change a little bit, but in general, and homes in this price point range from just 1 month of inventory up to about 2.5 months of inventory. Now, that is definitely a seller's market. Think about a stable market being at a 6-month inventory. So that's where a market would stabilize and balance. Now, when you get down into the price point of $125 to $150, there's not even a month's inventory in Buncombe County.
Wow.
And now you can get up to 2 months when you go out to Henderson and Haywood, but that's still only not even 2 months of inventory. So that is a seller's market, any of the surrounding counties and here. Now, when you get into the other price points, the mid-range is the second. So you have 3 categories. You have affordable up to $300, mid-range, which is $300 to $700, and then $700 and beyond is luxury. So in the mid-price range, this is an increasing inventory. It's closer to a balanced market. Remember that being a 6-month inventory. throughout the whole range. Now, homes in this price, starting out in the lower end, range from 2.5 months to just under 5 months, coming back to the 6-month stabilization. Now, when you go out to Henderson and Buncombe, now they have less than 3 months inventory, all the way up until the 350 price point. And Haywood, it starts to balance out actually a little earlier around the 3,000 price point. So it's more of a 5-month inventory there. So if you go into the other counties, you can see the balance and where it comes.
Sounds like 300 is kind of is a tipping point for all of the counties.
Yeah.
Is that
350 accurate? In Henderson and Buncombe, and 300 when you get into Haywood. So you can get a little more affordability in Haywood at that lower price point.
Right.
And once you get past the 350, then it really becomes more of a balanced, stable market. And above 450, there's 13 months of inventory.
Wow.
So you can see then it flip-flops into a buyer's.
Because that wouldn't have been the case like 6 months ago, would it have? I'm trying to remember, like, just not having that sense. Is that, do you recall? Or
last year this time, last year this time it would not have been that one. Now I don't exactly know when the transition was, but it is definitely different than it was last year when you talk about that price point. And it also depends on, I mean, when you get into Haywood County, you're talking about, months, 2 years of inventory at that price point.
Right.
So it really depends on where you're at. But in Buncombe, that's significant.
Is there anything, as you're kind of like running numbers, getting ready for today's talk, that jumped off of you're like, whoa, kind of not expecting to see this, and there's a trend that surprised you or anything along those lines?
I didn't have a lot of surprises, but I was thinking with how much it was slowing down, I actually compared third quarter 2019 versus 2018, just third quarter. And this is just single family. This isn't every listing out there. It's not talking about lots and land and multifamily condos. This is just talking about single family. We actually had 416 less units sell in just third quarter of, sorry, just want to make sure I'm saying the right year. Yeah, of 2019 was down, so 416 units.
Wow.
And we also had a decrease in price of 24,750
on average.
On average.
So we sold, there's less transactions, and they were, wow, I mean, $25,000 is a significant chunk for any, I mean, is this for what price point? For anything, or just across the board?
This is across the board.
Okay.
Yeah, for third quarter 2018 versus 2019. And so that was something that was surprising. I was running, when the general, all the numbers besides just single family, when you pull them all, it's not as significant. But to look at single family, that's what, most of the families in this area and people moving in are coming in to do.
Absolutely. Did you happen to do any Q3 comparisons for Buncombe for Haywood or Henderson County?
I didn't look at that in particular. I was trying to keep it more focused on Buncombe. But
that's fine. What about, did you do any other comparisons for quarter 3 versus quarter 3, like days on markets or anything like that? Days on markets I'm always curious about, so personally.
Yeah, everything was pretty comparable. It wasn't any significant numbers.
So
I mean, there were differences.
Are different then.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about, 150 versus 180, there's not that many significances when it comes to the rest of it.
Do you have an opinion on what's the difference between this year and last year? I mean, it doesn't feel like there's been anything major difference, right? Like, there's nothing been on the national scale. It feels like interest rates are about the same. Arguably, are they even better?
Yeah, even a little better, to be honest.
What do you think might be contributing to this, I don't know, slowdown, difference, decrease, etc.?
Well, if you look at it from a nationwide, we are actually barely even seeing a little blip in it.
Okay.
Whereas you look at other places, California, Florida, things like that, I mean, they are significantly seeing a decrease. I think part of the reason that we stay more balanced here and have an upward trajectory is because of the buyers that are here. We are not solely, the market's not affected just by the local economy. We have second-time home buyers coming in. We have retirees moving here. Outside investors, just due to our location and the desire to be here, the price point, so many different things. So we have not been affected as much as other parts of the country.
Right.
So it's part of the reason we keep staying on that positive trajectory, is just because of the desire to be here and the mix of all the different buying. It's not just local economy that really determines it like it does in other places.
What do you think is if you're thinking about selling, putting something on the market, would you wait right now and kind of wait until like maybe spring and see if things get more heated up, or would you just don't think it's going to make a huge difference anyway and you just go for it?
Well, really, I always say the best time to sell is when it's the best time for you.
Right.
I mean, there's always going to be personal reasons behind it, but the end of the year is a great time to sell for so many reasons. There's people moving here that are going to start jobs in the new year. They're looking at the end of the year. Serious buyers that need to buy before the tax year ends, or investors that are buying. December has historically been one of my personal highest times of highest sales. It's just a time where serious people are looking. Everybody kind of has the mindset spring is best. So there's always going to be an influx of extra inventory in spring. So in that mindset, you think if you were going to sell, there's less inventory. Exactly. Right. Even though there's more inventory than there had been, there's still going to be less now most likely than in spring, because that's when everybody chooses to list.
Do you think this is indicative of anything that's going to happen in Q4 or going into 2020? Any reason to sound the alarm, or is just normal things happening and it's not going to change too much?
I'm not here to sound any alarms, I guarantee. No, I don't see that. We're still looking positive. This environment of the Asheville and surrounding counties. Now, one thing that may cause some future changes, there is some rumblings of making changes to the short-term rental, as far as local governments being prohibited from making any rules and regulations on personal property. It could be statewide regulation.
Tell me more about this. I have not heard anything around this. So yes, that is interesting.
So a good example of where it was done is Sedona, Arizona. I mean, it was done in Arizona, but they make a state regulation saying that locally you can't make any regulations on personal property.
Right.
So there are good and bad things to this, and it still would be years in the mix before it ever happened, but there is something rumbling in Raleigh about it. And I mean, for example, in Sedona, they have 20% of their residences they actually say are short-term rentals. Now, the challenges they're having now are finding affordable homes for people that actually live there and just want to, because investors are buying entire buildings and making it all short-term rental because that's where the profit is.
Work, yeah.
Exactly. And so perhaps through the years, if it does come to pass here, we will have been able to go through their challenges and find some of the things that we can adjust if we were to make that change here.
Well, that'd be really interesting considering all the heavy legislation that the city of Asheville has put out against short-term rentals.
It is.
That would be a big change.
And then you think about some of the short-term rentals that people are doing outside of the city might affect them as well. Out-of-towners might not as much want to stay farther when they can stay in town now. So some of that money that you're making on the outside Airbnb short-term rentals may not be there in the future. That
would be big news. I bet you're saying it's early rumblings, like nothing's really happening yet.
It would be. I mean, it would be years in the process. Okay. I can't see it happening before then. But
that's sounding the alarm a little bit, by the way. Just gonna point that out. I
wanted to preface it by saying I wasn't sounding an alarm, but then I did.
I can't imagine that there wouldn't be an uproar in general by people in Asheville if that got overturned.
And there's so many facets and so many different people that it would affect as well.
Yeah, I just, because the affordable housing issue or conversation here has obviously been going on for a long time.
Yes.
And that's because there's no easy, clear-cut solutions. And if that got overturned, it'd be like throwing gasoline on the fire as far as what that would mean or could mean or wouldn't mean, et cetera. So,
and you talk about who's buying here now. I mean, in general, we do have a lot of second home ties. We do have investors. We do have outside investors, retirees moving here. Yeah. So it already is in that format for buying, let alone if that were to happen, how it would change.
Well, do you know of any other rumblings that you've heard about or that you found as you were kind of researching?
I might have to save those for another podcast till I get a little more.
Okay, that's a good teaser. Fair enough. Well, what else can you tell us about what's happening now and what might happen to close out the year, if anything? I mean, what should we expect?
I think we're on a positive trajectory. It's going to, the year's going to end out well. Our numbers are very similar to how they were last year. Price points are still appreciating, and like I said, even more in the outer counties, and we're not leveling out, but we're starting to plateau, but we are still increasing. And I think with the rates being the way that they are, I mean, that's a motivator for buyers always when you can have a rate like that. And with refinancing, I mean, now is a time for refinancing. If you have bought in the, anytime when you had higher than in the mid fours, it's a good time to refinance, pull some money out. I mean, the locals here need to go ahead and buy more houses instead of letting all these other people come in.
So how do you find houses then? Let's talk about that briefly. If somebody's like, all right, Cassie, I listened to the podcast, I pulled money out, I'm ready to go buy a house, but everything is too expensive, I keep getting outbid, like I tried and I'm not having a ton of success. What do I do?
Well, it's important to be working with a good buyer's agent that understands the market, because it can be very frustrating even if you have a good agent, but it's knowing, not lowballing offers. I mean, we see with our absorption reports.
I'm very guilty of that.
Well, you have maybe a different situation. When you're actually looking at something that's listed and you look at the absorption reports for this area, I mean, houses are selling for 96 and upwards of what they're listing for.
Oh, wow.
So when you're talking about that and you come in and offer a low ball, it offends people, and that's something important to know.
But should it offend people?
I don't have a right answer for that. I mean, everyone has a different personality. So
I mean, from your opinion.
I always tell my sellers not to be offended. And anytime I present a buyer's offer that is lower, I always say, please let your seller know that they're not trying to offend them. So
it's a numbers game at the end, right?
It is.
Okay.
It is.
How do you find a good buyer's agent? Or maybe let me rephrase that question. Say I'm about to sit down with a buyer's agent. What are like one or two questions I should ask to find out if that buyer's agent is, going to do a good job for me or not?
Ask them to show you what houses are selling for in a certain price point.
But can't anybody do that? Seems like a very low barrier to determine the quality of a good buyer's agent.
Well,
or maybe I don't know. Maybe expectations are off here.
That's one starting question to find out, because if someone can't answer that question for you, ask them.
Run for the hills at that point, right? Yeah.
Ask them what they do if you're ready to put an offer in. Ask them how they would present it. Ask them
a good question.
What they know about the market and negotiations. Do you want someone that does listing and selling and knows both sides, and where's the advantage come from that? Or do you like someone that only works with buyers, and where's the advantage from that? I mean, find out what your agent knows and how they're going to benefit you.
That's a good point. I think knowing how they present your offer would be important. I know that I'd be curious for that for sure. So, well, as we're wrapping up, any other parting thoughts? Market, how to find a house, how to sell a house, anything of wisdom that you want to impart on us today?
I wish I would have known you were going to ask that. I just say research the market, work with a good agent, research your agent, and the houses are out there. It may be frustrating. You may lose out once or twice, but it's a good market, and it's always a good time to buy if it works for you. And real estate always will appreciate, whether it dips and flows in the length of time, it's always going to appreciate. It's an amazing investment.
Well, your story, 2005 to now, right?
Yes.
But you held on to it. Would it have been a good deal if you would have sold it in 2009?
It surely would not have.
So yes, hold on to it for sure. Awesome. Well, Cassie, thank you for joining us today. All right, you guys. See you all next Tuesday. And as a reminder, would love to see you all at the Meetup Archetype last Tuesday of October. 10 free beers for the first 10 people. Or let me rephrase that. First 10 people get 1 free beer, not 10 free beers per person. But hope to see you all then, and hope everyone has a great week. See you all next Tuesday.
Thanks, Rodrigo.